Okay, Councillor Stenhouse.
Yes. The council received the treasurer's June 2020 financial report for information.
Thank you. And I think I'll just turn it over to our new Director of Corporate Services. And before I do that, I just say welcome to our town. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you. So basically, I'm just going to highlight the items that I put on the front of my RFD, which is that it's a work in progress that has yet to be completed. The Big Lakes County 50% requisitioning for the recreation. We haven't yet. What I did do was notice that Big Lakes has not yet invoiced us for the FCSCS share yet, but we did remove the $60,683 from the 2020 report, which was done in May, because that's actually 2019's expense. So right now there should be nothing sitting in that category, or you don't use function department. The interdepartmental reclassification has not been done, but will be done shortly. We're working very diligently at getting the 2019 audited financial statement report as accurate as possible. We're doing a full review of the capital projects. We're getting very close to having the federal gas tax completed, and at least half of the MSI capital has been identified and is cross-referenced, kind of a thing. So we're getting closer. Then we'll have a good idea of what's left in the reserves, and then we'll have a full picture for council. Hoping the goal is for the August 1st meeting. We'll see if we can attain that goal. Another change in the report that I have included is the principal and interest of all the capital finance ACFA debenture payments. So that's basically the changes that you saw highlighted or identified in the from May to June's reports.
Okay, yes, I'm sure we'll have lots of questions for you. Are you ready for questions?
I'll do my best.
All right, Councillor Rose.
So just a quick one on that last statement that you made where you didn't elaborate on, where it says Dave was only provided interest on two payments made in June. So it was unclear the information that Dave was provided, so you guys are trying to sift through that to find, because there is actually two payments that were supposed to have been reported on, or?
Okay, so to clarify, the payments that was made in March, Dave was provided the interest portion of that March payment, and then June had two payments for two different loans. So that's the additional stuff in June. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? No.
I'm curious why he wasn't provided is it not normal to have him be provided the principal as well? Like, why would he have only been provided the interest?
Well, it's the way that it was posted. So normally, in the past, the interest is an expense, and the principal portion is actually put into decreasing the amount of the loan, which is a category 4 function. So when Dave created the new budget format, he's putting the principal and the interest temporarily in the expense portion so that you budget for it, and it matches the budget and the expenses, right? So what will happen at audit time, though, is that the principal portion of that loan will then get transferred to the other category, which is the liability, right? So that's why it was done that way. It was a change in procedures, and the girls didn't realize that he was expecting that. So when Dave and I had a conversation, I understood his request, and I said, is this what you're looking for? And he said yes. So then I changed it in June, and then because there was two payments in June's, we made sure that both the principal and interest, because it's showing on your full payment amount in your budget, both interest and principal, we wanted to show you that it's there, right? Thanks. Okay.
questions?
I really like it. It's understandable.
Thank you. I can't take the credit for it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he was a good teacher.
Dave?
Yes.
Yes, he's very good.
Yes, knowledgeable.
Good. I have a few questions for you. One is in the items to be completed, interdepartmental reclassifications have not been done. What does that mean?
Okay, so as I understand it, and this is something that's still in the learning mode, when you're charging out the services of the administration and your public works to your other facilities like the sports complex, the pool and all that, the rec board, those services are being given to those facilities through your administration, and they're not cost, the cost of the accounts payable clerk, the accounts receivable, the CAO that oversees those, that's not all charged directly as a percentage of their salaries. It's done as an interdepartmental fee.
Okay,
So
a
that's what that
transfer.
means.
I get that,
Yes.
yeah. I didn't know, the word reclassification was throwing me off, but
Okay.
the transferring of those accounts, I understand.
Okay. That's,
And when is that normally done? I don't know when it's normally, is it just that it's usually done?
is it just once a year? For some reason, I assumed, and that's part of the reason it's not done yet, is because I have to look into it. I thought it was done quarterly or semi-annually at least, because there's reports that were done. So I'm not 100% sure, but I think Councillor Courtley had mentioned at the JRC that that was done once a year. So until I've had a chance to review how it actually percentage-wise gets broken down and all that, I actually haven't worked on it, to be honest.
Okay. The other question I had, and it's going back to our, how much property taxes we brought in. I'm just curious on, I'm looking here and we're down about 10% from where we thought we'd be at this time. Is that because the COVID project, or do we have any outstanding balances?
I would not be concerned with the regards to the date. You've extended the deadline date, and that's the biggest reason, in my opinion, briefly. After your deadline is,
I think it's August 1st, isn't it?
No,
September.
So it's September.
okay, so once you've reached that deadline, then we'll have a better idea of who's going to be outstanding in arrears for this year.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering how we were doing with that.
Yeah.
I think the ratepayers that are holding off are gonna hold off till the end. To save whatever,
Yep.
get interest on the money that they have anyway.
Well, and it doesn't sound like it's that much. If we know Arlen's not there and it's only 214 behind, we know who's holding out.
I have friends.
What else do we have?
No, I haven't paid tax yet, no.
There's 50. Well, I'm looking at the government operational grants in terms of revenues again. Yeah, I'm on page 56.
Anonymous, okay.
Just the government operating grants, I'm wondering, it doesn't look like we received our annual budget's worth of 189. I thought most of our grants came in from the government in one lump payment, like MSI and the gas tax, so we should get those all up front.
I know that you've received your MSI operating this year. Federal gas tax, I don't believe we received, but I don't know that that would be under operating grants, because that's usually a capital grant. So without knowing what other grants are in that category. I can look into it and get back to you, but I don't have an answer. I know you've got like Canada Summer Jobs, and that's only gonna be received, but it's not your difference. I can guarantee that.
No, I was just wondering if in my head, I thought we got them all earlier, so it should be right up to speed, but maybe not. That was,
I can have a look at it and give you the answer for the next August meeting if you'd like.
sure, okay, great. And I think that, and then just another small one, I'm just looking at local improvement charges. We, in terms of property taxes on page 57, the next page over, we should be received 20,000, but we haven't received any of that. That means all of those people in that particular, that had a local improvement tax have not paid their income tax yet. Is that what?
Well, local improvement is done at the same time as taxation,
Yeah.
to my understanding, so,
Is that just Cornerstone?
I'm not sure who else it would be, but I think there's some other places in town that have had a sidewalk done or something, and they had to pay part of those fees. Cause there was some, and then Cornerstone.
I am not familiar with the local improvement portion of it.
Okay, no, it's just
And
surprising.
it may only be in that it was
Adjusted.
sitting in the wrong category and it should be down here. Because I'm thinking when we did our taxation, tax levy for the year of 2020, it should automatically go into that account as a full revenue.
Okay.
So I can look into that and get back to you, but I don't have an answer.
Well, and at the end of the day, you know, when I'm looking here, we're not doing too bad in terms of, you know, we have, our income and expenses are pretty much where we thought they would be even with COVID, so that's good to see.
Yes.
Any other questions, Councillor Gilroy?
Just kind of curious, it would be page 62 of the treasurer's report. Just two quick ones. Is 233 including the money that we put ahead for the shovel-ready projects? Where it says engineering services? Is that the extra money that we were asked to give MPE for?
That's in capital.
Okay, so it's not in the professional services then? Okay, so.
Assessment services is 233, is that
Oh,
the one you're
no, sorry,
referring to?
you got 233 twice then.
Yeah, that's,
I'm looking at the engineering services, and I was kind of astounded with the other professional services both being way high.
yes, and that's the project that we've been working on, the filtration program, the water treatment filtration is probably sitting in that category and has to be reclassified for a capital grant. So it's probably gonna be not there come year end.
Okay.
And I will look into that and make sure that it is reclassified
Yeah,
correctly.
no, it just sort of just stuck out, and you had it
Yes.
highlighted, but made me
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're wondering why the green and the blue, the difference is that the green is identified and we know why. The blue has to be reviewed and confirmed. So it's work in progress.
All right, anything else at this point?
I thought you had a question.
No, I am good.
Okay. Sorry.
All right, I don't see any other questions. So thank you very much for coming out, and
Do you
it's,
have anything you want to show us and highlight?
well, there you go. Do you have anything else you'd
Show
like?
us directly that we
No, I don't think, the ones that are highlighted are ones that I wanted to draw your attention to. And I've explained the difference in my coloring code. This is something that Dave had done and that I continued with. And then I just identified in my RFD the ones that, the information, why the changes from the NAID report. Okay.
Great. And you feel like you're starting to understand what's going on?
Yes, baby steps. It may take a whole year for it to fully be all there, but it'll get there.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your report. We had a motion to receive for information. All those in favor? It is carried.
Don't forget your name tag.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have to bring it every meeting, though.
I promise.
You can just leave it here if you want.
So we're moving on to
I'll just put it on my desk, that way I
administration
can see it.
now. Item 10.1, can I get a motion on the grand opening appreciation policy? Councillor Tanaka, he was looking at me, I can tell.
Make a motion that council approve the changes made to policy COU-58-2020 grand opening as suggested by the bylaw review committee.
Okay. Questions, comments on this one? Councillor Gilroy?
How do you define, because it says any business that undertakes either visual or infrastructure improvements, is there a certain amount that they need to spend on this to be recognized?
So we can give $150 for putting a plant out front.
No.
No, it has to be an improvement.
No, it is an improvement, a plant versus no plant. I'm being facetious, yes, but I just want to know what the parameters are so administration as well can understand what counts as the visual infrastructure. For example, I know one of the companies in town is considering putting a mural on the side, and I was saying, that's an awesome idea, do it. And they may do that in a couple of years when they get around to it. But to me, that's a visual improvement. Or if they, say they paint the old Hudson Bay at the top and paint it a different color, something like that. I can see that as a big visual. But so, how do you define, and who defines the visual or infrastructure improvement?
Wow, you're being pretty.
Councillor Stenhouse?
So when we put that in, we were referring to the renovations that Shell made. They made a huge endeavor and put a lot of money and an improvement, so that's where we included that into the bylaw. Even though they were an existing building, business, they did a huge improvement.
Okay. That answer, what's that?
Basically a facelift on the structure,
Yeah. And
painting, whatever.
So why don't we just change the term to significant visual or infrastructure improvements? Because we're talking about a planter, because give the guy some credit. Because he's,
They changed the window display, okay?
but I mean, people can change an awning or do a small improvement, and that may not constitute a gift from the town for their endeavor, right? So the infrastructure or the project at Shell is a good example of a huge or a significant change. I mean, it's going to be hard to measure, but if you add a word that makes it sound at least like not everything that you do to your property, you paint your window, because come rodeo time, people are painting their windows, right?
But we were looking into, the public really notices, it stands out.
Right, but it
And
has to
you
say
know
that,
this.
right? It doesn't say that, and unfortunately, he's right.
Yeah.
That you put a plant up.
Unfortunately, he's right.
If you put a
They're harder on that one.
if you put a couple plants, planters out, that is a
Fix the broken one?
that is a visual change, right? So we have to just make sure that it's clear, because we're going to pass this on to other council as well, right?
Okay.
Okay, let's add it.
So can we put significant in without having to send this back?
I think so.
I'm good with that.
Unless you guys are happy with another word, but I think just something to make it.
Significance. Significant.
There you go.
Unprecedented. This Armin's big word tonight. For the day. You got that written down, buddy?
Gotta break out
He
the
needs the
thesaurus.
thesaurus.
Yeah.
Well, that's just
Okay.
how
Any business that undertakes either significant visual or yeah, how do you-
Any business that undertakes a significant visual or infrastructure improvement shall be recognized in the same fashion as a new business.
I think so.
Okay,
I don't get it.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
No flowers for flags.
The other thing I'm just going to make a comment is I don't think we've been following this policy very well. Because we've had new businesses come into town, and I don't believe that we've been sending them
the bubble tea people, yeah.
anything. For example, the
Bubble tea.
the what?
The bubble tea store.
Bubble tea.
It's right across from where you work.
What?
Bubble tea.
Oh,
There's a little business that makes bubble tea, Brian.
okay. Now I'm
Across
with
from
you.
where you work.
Well, you have to remember. I'm thinking in my mind. I was thinking the cannabis store. So, and I'm sitting there trying to
call it
put.
bubble.
Yeah, that's what I was. And
I
I'm
think
going,
they
is
have
this
enough
a
plants
nickname
over
for
there.
that? I don't know. And I couldn't
I
get it
can
yet.
show you how it works, Brian.
I think the cannabis store has enough plants without us giving them more.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. We just haven't been doing this that I'm aware of, and I don't know. Has administration been doing this?
Yeah, I've been doing
Some,
some.
not
No.
not all. And I think we just need to. And I think it's nice if somebody hand delivers it, like one of the counselors or something.
It'd be nice to have a picture of it on our website.
Yeah.
So like,
Exactly.
Well, at UFA, they totally redid their whole frontage,
Right?
the whole yard, everything.
Yeah.
I thought we actually gave them something at the time.
I thought we did, cause
I thought we
Linda
did,
was the
because
mayor
Linda
at
was,
the time.
it was,
people are kind of
relative.
whatnot, not paving it.
She was mad they didn't pay it, but.
Yeah.
But we do have the development clerk will get any new businesses, so we should be doing this, and I don't think that we have, and when they come in, we can have, counselor come in, get a picture with it, put it on our website. I think we need to promote that a little bit
Just say
more.
welcome to the community and put a picture of the new business, just like the newspaper does. And
So what was the first part of your?
it wouldn't be that hard to,
Oh, yeah.
if you do a significant improvement, like just take a picture, put it on our webpage, and say something like welcome to the community or great job or something that just encourages.
Oh, for sure, yeah, we should be doing it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Make
it
sure it's
promotes.
on the paper.
Well, we just haven't been doing it.
We gave
that
them a
I'm aware of.
cactus when they moved.
Tell the paper when we're delivering these gifts.
And I think as well, we've clarified this a little bit more because I believe the old policy said when they had a grand opening celebration. So that's why, because a lot of businesses didn't have a grand opening, they just opened and, like Pizza Hut, I don't remember ever seeing them having a grand opening.
And that could be why it slips through the cracks, because when they have a grand opening, they send a letter to the town and they invite you, right?
Yeah.
They invite you, it triggers, oh yes, it's your business, we'll buy the flowers, we'll go.
The Red
And now-
Apple was a good example.
Yeah.
They did that. They did, and they sent out, and it was a big event, and we went, I was
Yeah,
there and
yeah.
gave them the flowers, and that was good. But lots of stores are opening and we don't do anything for them.
Yeah.
Folks at Burger Bear.
You have to look.
They did some major renovations on
Huge
that.
renovation.
Oh yeah, it's totally different now.
Amiros is doing
Amiros
something,
put a brand
they're
new, yeah.
redoing their inside.
Give it a
Like
test
brand
when
new
co-op.
place, they'll really put
Yeah, there we go, yeah.
So there is a bit of a, I guess it's hard for administration is there's this period of time where you don't know if they're gonna do a grand opening, right? So if you just, as soon as the building permit, comes in and they're complete and we run over there with flowers, we may miss that opportunity that they have a grand opening. So I don't know, there's that window, I don't know how to,
Maybe we need to actually,
right, maybe just call them and say, are
Use
you
our
doing a grand
eyes
opening?
and
If
tell
not, we're gonna have a little welcome gift, right?
Okay, we have one small adjustment that administration's caught, but we have a motion to adopt this new policy. All those in favor?
with the amendment,
Yes. It's carried. Moving on to the next policy, the annual conferences policy, 10.2. Can I get a motion on this? Councillor Rose?
The council approved the changes made to the policy COU 66-2020 annual conferences as suggested by the bylaw review committee. which is just changing
We're
shall to may.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yes. Yeah, there was an error on the RFD under
Carry over
this,
from the previous.
yeah, from the source of funding, but that's,
Oh, yeah, appreciation gift should be $150 when we go.
Okay, as soon as you said that's not, so we send flowers to whoever goes, okay.
Councillor. Okay, discussion on this one?
No, I think it's good. It gives,
We wanted to stay with the flower clause.
Oh my goodness. That could be somewhere else.
don't touch that one, Michael. Hold it in. Okay.
I guess this, for me, I was just gonna comment on this one is, you know, the may and shall, I'm still of a belief that we should be sending people, or one or two, if it's out of province. When you say may, it's really, that's a maybe, and I think, again, I just put a lot of more weight than some of the councillors around here do, but I think it's important to go. I understand, if it's shall, you're tying the hands, or might be tying the hands, or we might be breaking policy like we did last time, right? We broke against policy, even though it said shall, we decided not to send anybody. So maybe may is in there, but I think at the same time, I think we should be sending people, that's my thoughts on it. Councillor Long, then Councillor Gilroy.
I think that having it as may and looking at one or two, it gives us some flexibility, but it also ties us to two. It doesn't say 4 or 8 or 6 or however. And that'll save us from running into trouble like the county did when they sent everybody to do whatever it was they did. So I think it's fiscally and fiduciary responsibility that we have is reflected in this motion. I think it's a good one. Gives us some leeway, but at the same time, two, if it's out of province.
All right, Councillor Gilroy.
Well, you know, I like the idea of freeing up the council to decide if it's one or two. And just to offset something what you just said, 2.4 says, in case there are more council members interested in attending than the number of council members authorized to attend, council shall put to a vote who shall attend. So you still have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives more flexibility to the council of the day to what they can afford and who should go. And if we're looking at, I'm not going to say yes, we did break and not send anyone, but then again, since I've been on council, we've broken number 2.3 at least once. Council shall rotate their attendance. We've had some councillors who've gone twice in the last 6 years to something when it says rotate. And so, no, but it hasn't always been availability. That's just the way it's gone. And so I'm just saying that I like the way this is put because it gives all flexibility to the council, and if someone does want to go, then the council can say, sure, if we think it's going to be something valuable, then we'll put an extra person. But it really allows us the freedom to vote well.
Councillor Rose.
Just make one comment, and I support whatever the majority of council thinks on this, because I mean the policy's been in place, but we've been against it for a number of years anyway. So I think we should put something to paper that we will, or makes it easier to follow. But I want us to kind of pay attention to the fact that this conference, I mean, there's value in it for some people. Really believe there's value, some people don't. But when we're making the decision to send council in the future, my understanding and based on financing and budget and even having a travel background, the only financial difference sending somebody to this conference and sending them to the AUMA is a plane ticket or a drive. Okay, so however they get there, right? So the FCM could be in Edmonton or Calgary and they could drive. So it would be the same as the AUMA. And when it's in Winnipeg or Halifax or whatever, when it was in Winnipeg, I went, I used my air miles and I went. ultimately, a ticket to some of those places could be $300 or $400. So the difference of this conference, we always blow it up and we make it seem like it's just really expensive because it's out of province, but we're talking about maybe $300 to $600 of a flight difference. So when we make the decisions, don't just, blow this conference off because it's too far away for somebody to attend. Because realistically, when we go, all 8 or 7 of us go to AUMA, that's a pretty expensive conference, right? And I mean, the mileage that we charge going out to Calgary is more than the flight from Grand Prairie to Winnipeg or whatever. So I mean, it's not. I think we put too much weight on the cost of it, and I think when we really analyze it, I don't know that this one costs really anymore.
But there's
Okay, you wanted to comment?
Yeah.
Councillor Stenhouse.
there's a double cost. It's either AUMA or FCMA. We shouldn't be attending both then. When you're attending both, that's that's a huge cost.
But again, it's your opinion, right? There's lots of councils and lots of communities that all council go to AUMA, all council go to FCM. It just depends on what the councils and what the communities believe and, what the budgets are, all of those things. You're right, it is an extra cost. But, I mean, that's just, we all have our own opinion on education and
But it's not just the difference of a plane ticket then. If you're going to both conferences,
I just mean if
it's
you're
a
deciding
whole-
to go to this conference, like I've just seen it discussed too much, like, we shouldn't be sending people because you're going to Winnipeg and it's so much more expensive. I just wanted to remind us that when we make those decisions, it's only the price of the ticket. And if we would just have followed sort of the lead that council put forward, and hopefully maybe we will reconsider, I put forward an idea years ago about let's use a credit card that has air miles on it. Because the amount of money that's spent on that credit card, even if it was just council expenses per year with, say going to AUMA, with some of the other costs that we could actually put on there, we might actually be able to fly at least one councillor for free. So the cost could be, but I put that idea forward, and then the previous treasurer did do a different sort of credit card, and it was like gifts or something that they could get instead of flights, right?
How do you think they're going on with these?
Damn it! There you go. Anyway, just some things to consider. Like I think we probably could send that 2 people to this conference without that actually even having to be that much more of a cost at all. So anyway, that's just more information for us to consider.
Okay, the only other thing I'll comment on is on the page 72, there's a whole bunch of typos in terms of spaces.
I see that. I'll let her know.
Yeah, so there's 2.3, 2.4, 3.1. The sentence is broken up onto separate lines when it should be moved up. That's enough when you fix that.
I just read it, I didn't even notice.
Okay, any other comments on this before we vote?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor? It's carried. Moving on to financial support donation request policy, Councillor Long.
That council will approve the changes made to the policy COU 46/2020 financial support donation request as presented by the bylaw review committee.
Okay, comments, questions on this one?
The yellow is what is the changes, and the blue is what was removed from here.
Okay.
So it's a combination of 2 policies now,
Yeah.
a consolidation of 2 policies.
Councillor Stenhouse?
It's just a comment, it's not relating to this policy. It would be kind of nice to see this also on the budget, where we show our sponsorships that in-kind has like a dollar figure too, as in sponsorship. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think if you look at the financial report, let's see, you will see it there. It is there, I believe. Let me see, line 221 and 772.
I think we asked Dave to include it before.
Yeah.
He might have already included it.
So, yeah, 221 is, well, we talk about advertising, but grants to local organizations is on page 65. And it's number 772.
Yeah.
So it's in our reports. Is that what you?
On page 65.
Page 65, under municipal operating grants.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is breaking it up so that we know, like, you know, okay, we give $3,000 to X, like, but in kind, we, like, okay, let's use the parade, the street sweeping and stuff, but the hours and everything, it added up to $2,000, you know what I'm saying? Where it shows the dollar figure, but it also shows the dollar figure of what the in-kind support was.
Okay, yeah, and I think you'd mentioned this before,
Yes.
didn't you? And it can't go into the financial statements because it isn't for auditing purposes. It can't be in there.
But how do
But-
we show what we're giving out?
That could be a separate,
reporting.
yeah, it could be a separate report to say, here's what we've done over the year in-kind support.
Yes, with the
Yeah,
dollar figure.
We could do that, yeah. But it can't go into the audited records because it's not a transaction that
Yeah,
way.
no, but what I,
Yeah.
what I,
Can I ask you why you want to do that?
so that we know what we're, cause we have a budget of so much, right? And we're only looking at the dollar figures, we're not looking at the in-kind support, and it actually costs money to the different departments. Like, we set aside so much money for
You wanna know that?
sponsorship, yeah.
That would be lots of work.
What?
Just think about it, for say the Elks rodeo. We put the banners up, we have trucks, men, and then the day of the rodeo, we have the street sweeper, the barricades, the men, the trucks to pick the barricades up, to put them out, the signs. It'd be,
And
But then when it
sometimes
comes
you
down
document
to-
the hours and how much time is spent and like who's gonna do all that sort of.
And what-
calculation.
Yeah, but okay, so then we're sponsoring one organization with so much money, and the Elks, we're gonna give them 3,000 for the fireworks plus in-kind, so technically they're getting 5,000. So we're not really playing a fair game here when we're giving more to one than the other, if we don't take that into consideration.
Okay, we've got two other hands up, Councillor Long and Councillor Gilroy.
So the in-kind contributions and all the grants and stuff that I've done, in-kind is at best a guess, and it's an attempt from the triple P that you've got, whether it's your public-private partnerships. It's almost like a goodwill gesture. We have this equipment, we have these people available, we can provide that for you. And it's doing that so that events can run and nonprofits can make an event, a festival of some kind, and not have to worry about barricades and those things, because we can provide that for them. We have it, we have the people, we know the streets, we know the route you're going to take for your parade or whatever it is you're going to do. It's not done. We wouldn't be able to provide an in-kind contribution if it was onerous on the town. We wouldn't do it. But if it's something that we can do, then it's a sign of good faith and good luck, and hope your event runs well. It's not like we're putting out actual dollars to make this work. Yes, you're right, it costs, but it costs, those people are still working anyways, one way or the other. Whether they're doing this, they'll be doing something else. And so we can, our CAO and superintendents can make it work, and make it, if it's viable, they can do that. It's not something we're gonna put down there and then say, okay, now we reached that $2,000 in-kind contribution value, so now we're gonna stop. Sometimes it's 2,000, sometimes it's 1,000, but we say it's up to this amount. It's more in good faith. It's a goodwill gesture, is all it is. But you're right, there is a cost to it. But it's minimal when you consider that they're at work anyways, and they're doing these jobs anyways.
Almost unmeasurable.
Councillor Gilroy.
I said I'd never agree with Councillor Stenhouse, but this time I do agree with her, in the sense that I'm not asking for that money to be set aside somehow, but even if it was we have asked previously, and I wish he was still here, but we've asked our public works manager previously, how much, for example, when we're talking about the rodeo, how much it would cost to do such and such, and he had a ballpark figure for us. We just passed something here for futures, community futures, which asks for in-kind of a certain amount of money. I'm not asking for fairness as much as I think it would be good for our community to see that not only do we give out so many thousands of dollars in support, but their tax-paying dollars, we were able to do this much more in kind, which makes them feel like their dollars are going further, as opposed to just going to, oh, I'm paying the guy who does my drain, or I'm paying for the guy who does the swimming pool, or whatever. I think if we could do it, even if it's a ballpark figure, we could say, for all of the stuff we did this year, not itemized, because I don't really care itemized, but if we could say, you know what, we gave what, say $30,000 this year, and then, you know what, our in-kind, our guys were so good that we actually gave an extra $50,000 worth of in-kind stuff because we believe in this town. You know, something like that, I think, yeah, you don't have to put any sort of record in there, but to say that we went that much further and used your dollars even more so to get more bang for the buck and encouragement, I think that would be something really good for the community. And as I said, maybe it'd be $50,000 of in-kind, but it doesn't have to be totally accurate. But I'm sure that when they're thinking about it, when they're thinking about the projects they have to do, they are thinking about how many man hours, people hours, whatever you want to call it, are into it, and they'd say it's going to cost me $500 worth of wages to get that. Okay, well, in kind, and just make a brief note so that we can celebrate the fact that we're encouraging their money to go further, and that's why I would like to see it.
Councillor Rose.
So a couple of things, but firstly, I mean, I don't mind the idea of what you're talking about. I used to work in community events for Grand Prairie College, and we did fundraisers, and we gave sponsorships, or we sold sponsorships, right? And a lot of them were in-kind sponsorships. People would be doing work for the college, and we would have to invoice that out, but it was at 50%. So there is actually a formula that CRA actually has for in-kind. It is very complicated, and we can give somebody at the town this job to sort of figure out how much and micromanage and figure out how much everything that we do costs, and we can have a list and we can have a record. But I don't know the value in it. Like, I'm just wondering, right now with like the staffing situation that we have, do we have enough manpower to find this position, right? And is there value? Like what you were saying about letting the community know what kind of generosity we're promoting it with the town. I agree that's not a bad idea. But who actually, do we actually report that? Do we actually report now? I mean, there's a financial statement, and in the financial statement it says how much money is donated. But do we put out this flowery report that says how much money we report? Do people actually pay attention to how much money we donate? So if we added to that how much in kind we donated, I think it's the same people that are not interested in the first report that are not going to be interested in the second report. Like, I just don't know how. I mean, it's not a bad idea. I just don't know where. Like, sometimes, like, what are you doing that's going to gain you anything? Like, what? How does this help us?
Councillor Gorley.
Yeah, because in comparison, even when you, as a person, when you're working with a charity or donating your time or doing something like that, when you're working yourself in kind, you take a tally and measure down how many hours you do and how many hours you could have made, but this is what I could have done, but I'm not going to charge you for it. Do you write that down as a person? I don't. I figure it's the least we can do for the organization deciding, whatever organization it is that we decide to help out and donate our time. This is the same thing in kind as a donation of our abilities to a function that needs the help. You start measuring that, and you start putting a number on it, then people will start scrutinizing that because it's something that's tangible now that you can actually look at and say, holy, we gotta cut that, which is ridiculous. It shouldn't be measurable. It's something that you shouldn't measure. It's just something you should be proud to be able to do, whether a person, industry, town, or whatever. It's just something you do, and you shouldn't measure it. And in-kind should never be measured because it's in-kind, hands down.
Okay, I'm going to move on to a little bit of a different tact because this is in kind, and whether in the future we decide to track it or not track it, that it's not really part of this policy whether or not we track it. But one of the things that when I look at it, and we always have these issues, when I read this policy, we always have, some confusion when it comes to grants, sponsorships, what else do we call it in here? Donations. And what is the difference between those and which sort of budget and line items do they come from? So that and then we talk about advertising, right? And we have an advertising budget and we have this budget. And this policy doesn't clarify it for me, and if we're going to do a new policy, I would like to see sort of a definition section added that would say, this is what, and it's sort of done that in item on page 80, there's kind of an example of in-kind donations and sponsorships. But that's good. And then there's financial support donations for services. Is that the same as a grant? It's just not clear on what's a grant, what's a donation, what words are synonymous, which words are different. And I know we, as a council in the past, have wrestled with those terms before and saying, well, that's really a sponsorship, but no, it's a donation. No, it should be a grant. Or is it advertising? And if it is in each one of those, where's the pocket of money? So even our new director of corporate services knows that this should come out of advertising budget, or it should come out of the grants budget, or just some clarification in there is what I would like to see this policy show. I don't know, that's the one thing that I sort of I like the idea of rolling the two into one, because having two is just confusing. So the idea of rolling them into one is excellent, but just that confusion, I'm still a little bit confused when it comes out there.
We did that too 7 years ago when I first worked here, and when the previous councils, we wrestled with that issue too. And it's still foggy.
Yeah, and I would think if we can sort of wordsmith that so it's clear in the future, it would be better for me, but that would be my...
So you want to send it back to the bylaw for clarification? Is that what you're asking or saying?
Yeah, for a definition section that clarifies those.
See you, Richard.
Bye, Richard.
Yes?
Good night, bud.
Yeah.
So a clarification of those terms and which budgets they should be taken out of. And I think it started in sort of that page 80 with in-kind donations and sponsorship. It kind of defines that, but it doesn't define the other terms. I don't know, that was my take. I'll throw it out there as a suggestion. I don't know if others agree or disagree.
I think it's a good idea.
Send it back to bylaw and we'll tweak those, what goes into what.
Okay. Councillor Corley.
You don't think that would give us a little bit of leeway one way or the other to twist it sometimes to, maybe it's advertising, maybe it's donation, maybe it's...
And we have done that.
Well, you know what, and then depending on how we want to do that, it does give us that leeway to put it on into whichever budget line we need to have it, right?
I don't
Because
think...
we have that ability.
But it also gives us 1 hour discussions on each
Well,
topic.
yeah, but sometimes those 1 hour discussions are needed.
I don't think it would take away that leeway. It would just help us to understand where it should maybe go as opposed to hammering it out.
But if it limits us on doing something that we all would like to see done, but because of the definition says one thing and we can't do it that way, then is it really what we need?
Yeah, I see what you're going with. I think
it combines the two and it basically spells it out that way, and then anything past that point, we have a little bit of leeway to discuss it, right? So.
I think if we pass this to future councils, they'll be confused over all of those things too, that's just my thoughts.
But it's clarifying it quite a bit.
To do when they start.
Yeah.
I would think they can say thank you to us.
That's right.
And it'll give a reason to be on the bylaw.
But
Okay.
myself personally, I think this is fine. I like the way it is. That's just me.
Yep, no, it's, all right, we have a motion.
Who made the motion?
Councillor Long.
Yeah.
To,
Just to receive for information?
no, he had to approve it. So we can vote on that. All those in favor? Opposed? It is, did you vote? I didn't see that.
It's 4-3.
Oh, okay.
Tie, so it's defeated.
No, it's 4-3.
It was 4-3.
There's 7 of us here.
Oh, yeah, okay, he done this.
Okay, so it was defeated.
Defeated, so it's done.
Do we have another motion on this one? Councillor Gilroy?
That we return the, what is this? I just went right by it.
46.
Okay, that we, page 46? Oh,
Financial support and donation.
okay. Michael, can you make the point? I'll disagree with you. I have to find it first. Okay, that we, okay. The council return the policy COU 46/2020 financial support / donation requests to be reviewed by the bylaw review committee.
Add definitions.
With suggested changes. Okay, with
Define the
Yeah.
no,
They get the idea.
with definitions as discussed, because we talked about them.
Okay. All those
Mary
in,
would love that one.
yeah.
I think we should make it clear that it's in reference
Okay.
to.
Tell them what you want.
But as per the manner. Okay, she can call Brian when she's frustrated.
Don't tell them.
Well, no, that goes.
All those in favor? Opposed?
I'm in favor.
Yeah, okay. It is
They're
carried.
gone as 50%.
No, it's like 70,000 minutes.
Yeah.
Moving on to our CAO's report and action list. Can I get a motion here? Councillor Stenhouse?
The council received the CAO's Brian Martinson's report and action list for information.
All right. Turn it over to our CAO.
Just to let all the council know that you're invited to a golf tournament. The county are still gonna hold something for the businesses not in High Prairie, I believe it is. And they're going to have the golf tournament on August 6th, which was the scheduled date for their annual golf tournament. And yeah, you're supposed to register. I got the form here if you wanted to take part.
Okay, so what do we have to do? Do we have to pay money, or does the town pay money, or do we volunteer, or what?
I think what they're doing is they're going to, whatever, rent the cards that are out there. I don't think they're gonna look at big numbers, so. But, yeah. I can make some more copies of these forms if somebody's interested.
We'll have to bring our own shrimp and Caesar mix?
I don't
You
know.
can't share it
I
either.
would think you would have to do that. I think they're looking at probably doing a breakfast and whatever. Registration and a breakfast are free. Well, they're begin at 8 with a shotgun start at 9 o'clock.
Oh, we'll have police officers there.
So they're they're not asking us as a council if we want to go and show up and work.
No.
They're,
They wanted to know if you wanted to show up.
if you wanna put a golf team in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm entered.
Okay.
So there's a cost to the team registration?
Well, I would imagine you have to pay green fees.
Green fees, okay. No, that's great.
Was you under 3 teams?
Did I? No, I entered one team. Our engineers were gonna take me out, so Meetig and Drew are coming up with golf and family for
So they're not
Little
putting
professional
together the
fees.
big fundraising
No,
that they've done
no.
before, and it's not, it's just doing something.
Just a network.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not a fundraiser of
No.
any sort.
No.
They're just gonna recognize the business community.
So they're putting it on.
I think what they're gonna do, they're gonna have a barbecue after, and they're gonna have hot dogs and hamburgers and something like that.
So they're not, I'm just trying to get my head, they're not asking for the town to go out and do anything like we've been doing in manholes.
Give any money that we used to
So,
give.
Okay.
they actually sent us, and then they sent me one, but. that's-
Big Lakes County is invite you to a morning of golf. Registration and breakfast are free and will begin at 8 a.m. at a shotgun start. So registration
And
is
it's
free.
free, yeah, so it doesn't cost you anything. That makes
Yeah.
no sense.
So this is just
They have enough money.
a gift back to
Who?
the businesses.
They were gonna
and
invite the businesses, yeah. Business.
Oh, it's free golfing for the business type thing, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Now it's making sense.
And PR for the
Yeah.
councilors who
Oh,
go.
okay. So it's a free thing. If you wanna go golfing, you pay, or you probably don't have to pay. They're probably rented the golf course for the time and away you go. Okay.
It was both different ways, so.
Oh, okay. And registration form, okay. Now I get a better, my head's around it a little bit
Yeah,
more.
I know, yeah, it's slowly falling.
Cause I was thinking the traditional tournament, and that's not what it is at all. We won't have your hole there, are we?
Maybe you and I should do father son.
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
Who's the father and who's the son?
Yeah.
He's way older than me, so I'll be junior.
Free golf for our council.
Okay, anything else, Brian?
Not really, just been attending lots of meetings and
That's all in there?
working with Rita, trying to figure out the financial structure and, hopefully she hangs on, because the funding in that, where the MSI and all that stuff is for the, last number of years, is trying to get a handle on that stuff is searching and.
There's no distinct, like, invoice and receipt.
There is, but it's to what money went to what project, and there's carryovers of MSI funding and gas tax funding, and she's got a good handle on it, but she's doing like her.
And that's great, but every single treasurer that we've hired on has complained about the previous treasurer.
She hasn't complained.
No, and they've all done things differently. And we get the audits, and the audits are fine, it's nothing too bad to report on. It's always sort of in the middle. But really, boy, it seems to me like we have not had good luck with treasurers. And they just seem to be all over the map and do things the way they want to do it without following a strict, structured invoicing system. It should be province-wide, like this is how you do it.
Michael, it's set up with no accountability. I've said that for the last couple of
Yeah.
years, that I really recognize that this whole treasurer process, there's nobody that, I mean, unless you have a CAO that, has that background too, and that it makes them more accountable, it's very difficult for there to be any accountability in the process. And the other thing that's really difficult is that we're all worried about conflict of interest all the time. Like, I mean, Brian wasn't even allowed to hear the report about the upgrade or the update from the college, and it wasn't even, they weren't asking us anything, they were just giving us a report. Because he works at the college, he couldn't even hear the report from, remember from Dan and Ann when they came in. But the treasurer is able to present to us a cost of living increase that directly affects her pocketbook, and any incremental increases, and the entire budget that affects whether or not she gets paid or she doesn't get paid, right? So, like, I really question the whole process without there being an accountability measure in place. So you're right, it is very difficult right now and for us to even have an element of trust after we've gone through three.
There was
Herb, Herman, and Terry, right?
no.
Yeah, this,
Yep, Councillor Courtney.
The only real difference that I see is, really, and it's obvious, Dave was involved. We had Dave hired.
Yeah.
I really liked what he's done in the short time he was involved with us.
Yeah.
And he has been mentoring her.
Yes.
To the
So, well, no, and that's the reports come from him, right?
Yeah.
With her help.
She's
So,
following the same reports.
right, exactly. So that's a positive that hasn't happened before,
Right.
right? Where somebody has helped and mentored in a system that we like, right? So I think it's a good push for her to start out with, right? That most treasurers probably don't get. And she's also, she was a CAO before?
She's CEO of Donley.
Yeah, she goes
Was she a treasurer before that somewhere else?
CAO and treasurer of Donley,
Oh.
because it's a three-man office, right?
Oh, right, yeah, I see.
One person's
okay.
public works.
So,
and-
so she has the experience in that, so even with Dave mentoring her, she's, you can see she's happy with what she's using, right? So I think it's a good start anyways, different than the other treasurers.
Yeah.
well, I still think part of it, the responsibility should lie upon our auditors, since according to what Dave said, David said specifically that our auditors didn't even ask for everything.
Well, they asked, but they didn't get it, but they
But
didn't
that's
tell
the
us.
thing, as an auditor, if
But
you
they didn't tell
ask,
us.
any business says if you ask, you have to get, and you don't sign off on it till you get everything, because you're actually putting your label on there before
But
you know
it's a really tough system because they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them, right? So the CAO and the treasurer, like, they're the ones that sort of pay the bills on the auditor, right? So if the auditor comes in here and tells us, the treasurer is a disaster, there's all these mistakes, I've been asking for all this information, they run the risk of losing their job. So it's really difficult to get them to come in and tell us the absolute honest. I mean, they do the best they can probably, but yeah, I think that's what ends up happening is that they don't want to run the risk of losing their contract, right?
It's
Anyway, I know
council
where they
that
risk it.
hires the treasurer. It's not the
The auditors.
The auditors.
No,
yeah.
I know, I realize
It's
that.
council that hires the auditors,
Yeah.
and we need to get what we want
we don't
from
really
them, and I
work
don't
with the
think
auditors.
that we've been getting that.
But we don't
from
really
them.
work with them in the end.
No,
They work directly with.
They work
they're in-
directly with, but they report to us.
It doesn't
But
seem
if
like
you
they're
haven't
giving
been
us
getting-
but if the auditors have had concerns about these things and not brought them to us,
Yeah.
it's their professional reputation on the line as well. They can get a lot of trouble if they agree to something and they can't back it up. So you have to balance because the whole mess there is both.
The preamble that every one of them has given us each year, and they sit there and tell us, this is the information that was provided to us, and what was provided to us checks out okay. They don't say, this is what's been provided to us, and we're missing a whole pile of shit, and you guys just like going flushing down the toilet. No, they don't, because
And,
it's
and
a slippery slope from saying, I don't have all the information I need, to saying that the person that's the treasurer is incompetent, which then puts them up for libel, slander, and defamation of character, and on and on. So they don't, they would never do.
But I think we need to talk to the treasurer when he's here and find out how we get the information that we need,
mean
and
the
make
auditor.
sure the
Auditor.
auditor.
I think we need to have.
We need to make sure that auditor is giving us some advice on how we get the information that we want to make sure that those processes are being done in a standard manner, so that as we change treasurers, there's no issues. Yeah. Okay, we're getting a little off a track, but we're on the CAO's report. Do we have any other questions for our CAO? Councillor Gilroy.
I don't know if you can say this out of camera or not, but I'd love to know what happened in your July 17th meeting with our mayor and the Reeve of Big Lake County to discuss the 2019 funding that was taken back.
Well, I can mention that this is because we had the discussion. They were going to take it to their council and bring it back.
Timeline?
They did that already.
Yeah.
They already did, they turned it down.
Again?
Correct, that's the Indian camera.
Well, that's what I said.
You guys didn't do a very good job convincing them.
Well, the ones that were there, I think. Anyways, let's move on. Any other questions for our CAO? Seeing none, we had a motion to receive for information. All those in favor? It is carried. Moving on to our written and verbal reports. Councillor Danaka?
No report.
Councillor Gilroy?
No report.
Councillor Long?
No report.
Oh, this is quick. Getting to me, I'll just, yeah, I'm gonna blow it. I got a few things. We talked about the one meeting that already. I gotta put down my meetings that I had. Oh, here they are. We had the broadband committee meeting, and actually Councillor Gilroy was there on that.
It was already reported, so I said.
Yeah, okay. So we had, yeah, I think we've talked about that. I won't go into that, talked about that. We also had an intermunicipal meeting, and I think the only things coming out of that one was there was a discussion about whether or not we should be charging for putting white goods into the transfer station. And it was decided there that we wouldn't be. The council or the county people don't charge for white goods, so we weren't going to differentiate with town people going to Gilwood and charging for that. There was some discussions about a house, purchasing a home for doctors, and the committee decided it wasn't, probably didn't need it. We're working on renting right now, and it works for the most part, not always, but they've always been able to find something. Buying a house is another big expense, and then you gotta furnish it, you gotta clean it, and all of those things. So we decided to, for this point in time, not to proceed with bringing it to councils to see if they wanted to.
I think it's swapped by council.
And yeah, that was basically it on that. And we told them that we weren't proceeding with the communication / emergency alerting system with them. So those were the results of the intermunicipal. I think those were the key highlights on that. I'll move my report for information. Any questions before I do? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried. All right, Councillor Fortley.
I was at two meetings, the one with the Recreation Committee with our CEO, and I was at the meeting with the mayor at the intermunicipal committee meeting, so self-explanatory.
What about recreation? What happened there?
Well, funny you ask. I have to have that here. Not a lot. We had the reports from our managers, Rick Dumont, and verbal report from Gala, just basically on how they were dealing with the COVID and all the updates on the pool. How her verbal report was on the pool and how they're doing with everything going on there, and it's pretty involved. It's a lot of work dealing with the COVID restrictions. So, but they're getting through it, and the people that are actually using the pool, the majority of them are happy that it's what it is. So that's all That's all that matters at the end of the day, as long as their patrons are happy, right? So,
Happy and safe.
safe being the optimum word, right?
Yes, they get into the word.
Yeah, so basically, the grass is being cut. They're working on, at that point in time, they're working on the, getting the JC Park ready for the beanbag for Sean Auger's. I think that went well. I never heard back.
Only less than half than what they expected.
Oh, less than half. Okay, well
I
that's,
only heard about when I saw people walking over there.
yeah, so, other than that, it was basically, went through the financial report, but there was a lot of, kind of like what was today, was just basically, here's where we're at. Not mid-month, but mid-year, right, with everything going on, so. A lot of savings in places because obviously things aren't open and working. Not as much savings that I expected though, really, but it's what it is. It's a lot of expenses firing up. One thing is that there's going to come back to the council here is probably there's some equipment that needs to be changed out of the pool, dealing with the chemical treatment. Some antiquated equipment there that's she's really worried about. So she's put together a financial RFD, I guess, to come to the council here for us. So.
What year was the pool built?
What year?
Yeah.
2010.
2010.
Was it 2010?
10 years old and it's antiquated.
It was antiquated going in there. We were, remember way back when most of the equipment that went in that pool was antiquated then.
Yeah.
We were sold a bill of goods.
Yeah.
And that's common knowledge. It's not good. We've made it work. But it's taken a lot of maintenance and a lot of care and attention. But, yeah. So.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So when they did the public swim to promote it, did people come out for that? Do you know?
I don't know the numbers
Oh,
on how many people came.
oh.
I'm not sure. We didn't dive into attendance numbers.
Didn't dive into.
Ha! You got that, did you?
That's where I was over my head.
Yeah, but
The old days, doggy paddle went.
she's really been promoting that. She's having to deal with a lot of, because of that time off also with memberships and stuff. A lot of people are wanting offsetting times to offset, because they paid for a year and you're not open and there's all, so she's been dealing with a lot of that, right, Brian? But she's dealing with it well, so.
Councillor Gilroy.
Actually, either you or the CAO could answer this. This is thinking back to a topic that was brought up by our mayor a number of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Did they clean up the washroom area around the theater? Remember, Mayor, you were talking about how you had a Heart River Housing meeting there, and you were pretty embarrassed. In Ricky's report, did he talk about any of the extra renovations and cleaning that need to be done that our mayor was embarrassed over?
I didn't know he was embarrassed.
I talked to them and they were in there cleaning during the rainy weather when they couldn't be cutting grass and I don't.
Just want to make sure we follow up with what the mayor said.
I must admit, was I not here for that meeting when you were embarrassed?
No, you were at that.
Yeah, I don't know if you weren't here. I can't remember.
I don't remember you being embarrassed.
Yeah, that was bad.
Was it? Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, you're gonna move your report?
I'll move my verbal report for information.
All those in favor? Opposed?
I'm
Oh, you're in favor, okay. Councillor Rose?
Oh, my life.
Councillor Stenhouse?
No report.
All right.
The only one.
Yeah, no.
No, the mayor was one. So
Yeah.
The mayor, not council.
All right, we'll take a short break. and then we'll move on to our closed session.